There comes a moment in every life when the alarm clock inside the soul begins to ring, not the one on your phone, the one buried under years of doubt, disappointment, and silent dreams. And when that inner bell rings, it doesn't come to wake your body. Oh no, it comes to wake your identity, to shake the dust off who you were supposed to become. Some of you have been sleeping with your eyes open, walking through days like a shadow on autopilot. You're breathing but not living, moving but not advancing, working but not becoming. And today I'm telling you to rise, not simply stand, rise. Let the ground remember your weight again. You've been asking for transformation while holding on to the very habits that suffocate it. You want the door to open, but you keep sleeping on the keys. You want new outcomes, but you cling to old patterns like a comfort blanket stitched with fear. Wake up. You cannot carry every yesterday into tomorrow and expect a different horizon to appear. There is a version of you waiting ahead, a stronger, clearer, wiser, braver version, but that version refuses to meet you halfway. It waits at the level of discipline, not desire. It waits at the level of action, not intention. It waits at the level of courage, not convenience. Transformation doesn't knock politely, it disrupts. It rearranges the furniture of your mind. It flips tables you've been eating excuses from. It exposes the limits you built from broken seasons. It demands that you stretch, that you sweat, that you surrender who you used to be so you can step into who you were meant to be. If you want change, you must challenge the quiet voices that whisper, "Not today." Those voices are your old life trying to negotiate its survival. Ignore them, silence them, outgrow them. Your future cannot fit inside the cage your past built. Wake up from the belief that you are unworthy. Wake up from the lie that your best days are behind you. Wake up from the comfort of almost and someday. Someday is a graveyard where unlived dreams go to die. Today is the doorway. Right now is the invitation. Life will not transform because you want it to. Life transforms when you decide that staying the same is more painful than the work required to change, when you get tired of circling the same mountain, when you refuse to be defined by a moment that tried to break you, when you step out of the old chapter without waiting for applause. You have strength you haven't touched yet. You have resilience that hasn't even been stretched. You have potential sleeping under the rubble of self. Doubt waiting for your command to rise. Speak to it. Call it forward. Tell your fear it no longer has voting rights in your decisions. Rise above the noise. Rise above the habit that dilute your greatness. Rise above the people who only knew the older version of you. Rise not because life is easy, but because staying down is expensive. Your transformation starts the moment you stop hitting the snooze button on your purpose. The moment you stop lowering your dreams to match your comfort. The moment you stop waiting for permission to live fully. Wake up, stand up, step up. Your life is not waiting for a better moment. Your life is waiting for a braver you. The moment a person finally wakes up is never loud on the outside. It's an eruption on the inside, a kind of inner sunrise that doesn't ask for permission. It begins as a faint stirring, a restlessness that won't let you get comfortable in the life you've been settling for. There is a reason you've been feeling that quiet tug, that unshakable sense that there is more in you than what you've been living. That is the internal alarm clock, not ringing to start your day, but ringing to start your destiny. It calls you to rise from the fog of routine thinking, to shake free from the sleep, dust of old disappointments, and to reclaim the brilliance you tucked away when life became heavy. Some people spend years waiting for an external sign, yet the greatest sign is already pulsing beneath their ribs, the hunger for transformation. You can't keep hitting snooze on the whisper of purpose. Every time you silence that inner call, you postpone the life that belongs to you. You postpone breakthroughs, relationships, opportunities, and growth that would have already been yours if you had stepped forward when you felt the nudge. Waking up is not about opening your eyes to the world. It's about opening your eyes to yourself, the part of you that has been told to shrink, the part of you that has been buried under survival, the part of you that remembers who you were before fear taught you to forget. That part of you is knocking. It's not impatient, but it is persistent because it knows the truth you keep pushing aside. You were never designed to stay where you are. Somewhere along the way, life might have convinced you that maintaining your comfort was safer than pursuing your calling. But comfort can become a quiet prison when it overstays its welcome. Comfort will cradle you until you no longer recognize your own potential. Waking up requires you to push past that comfort, to confront the pieces of your life that feel familiar but no longer fit. It demands that you lift your head from the pillow of excuses and look directly at the places where you've allowed fear to negotiate your dreams down to something manageable. You weren't created to be manageable. You were created to be remarkable, undeniable, and unmistakably alive. When you wake up, your perspective shifts. What once felt impossible becomes necessary. What once felt overwhelming becomes non-negotiable. You stop asking for the world to change, and you start changing the way you move through it. You stop waiting for someone to validate your vision, and you start validating your own breath, your own fire, your own unstoppable push forward. Waking up is not a single moment, but a decision you make repeatedly, choosing awareness over autopilot, courage over comfort, and purpose over passivity. It is the bold declaration that you will not live another day asleep at the wheel of your own life. Transformation does not arrive with fanfare, it arrives with disruption. It steps into your life like a truth you can no longer outrun. It confronts you with the gap between who you are and who you could be, and it refuses to let you hide behind the old narratives you've been repeating for years. Transformation demands honesty, and honesty is rarely comfortable. It asks you to acknowledge the habits that have slowed you down, the fears that have held you hostage, and the patterns that have kept you looping through the same seasons over and over. Every time you feel that inner tug for more, that is transformation calling you out of the shallow end of life and inviting you into deeper waters where your real potential waits. You don't evolve by chance. You evolve by choice, by discipline, and by the willingness to confront your own reflection without flinching. There is a version of you waiting beyond your current limits, but that version will not step into your life until you make room for it. You cannot grow while clinging to what no longer serves you. You cannot rise while holding hands with every fear that keeps you grounded. Transformation means letting go of identities that have expired. It means releasing the habits that drain your energy, the relationships that dilute your purpose, and the excuses that shield you from responsibility. Growth requires pruning. It requires subtraction before addition. It requires you to stop negotiating with the doubts that have been whispering you into smaller corners of your life. The life you want wants you back, but it will not meet you at laziness, hesitation, or half commitment. It meets you at discipline. It meets you at intention. It meets you at the place where your actions finally match your desire. Every day you delay your transformation, you extend the lease on a life you've already outgrown. Change is not waiting on better conditions. It's waiting on a better decision. Some people mistake desire for progress, but desire without discipline is just daydreaming. Transformation begins when you take ownership, when you stop blaming your past for the stagnation of your present, and when you recognize that your future is built on the choices you make today. You must be willing to outwork your excuses, outgrow your fears, and outlast every whisper that tells you it's too late. It is never too late to become the version of yourself you were meant to be, but it is always too early to quit. You have to move even when you don't feel ready. You have to push even when it feels uncomfortable. You have to rise even on days when everything in you wants to retreat. Transformation is not a burst, it is a rhythm. A steady, intentional march toward a better life. A quiet agreement you make with yourself that your purpose deserves more than your distractions, that your future deserves more than your hesitation. The moment you embrace that rhythm, you stop being shaped by your circumstances and start being shaped by your commitment. The voices that whisper "not today" are not harmless. They are the anchors of an old life trying to survive. They speak in the language of hesitation, disguising themselves as caution, comfort, or common sense. But their true aim is to keep you right where you are. The moment you begin to stretch toward growth, these voices rise like a fog, blurring your clarity and weakening your resolve. They replay old failures, magnify old fears, and remind you of every moment you doubted yourself. But these voices are not truth. They are echoes of a version of you that no longer fits the life you're trying to build. To transform your life, you must confront these internal whispers and refuse to let them write the script of your destiny. Every step toward your future requires a negotiation with the doubts that want to hold you back. They will try to convince you that your best days have passed, that new beginnings are only for the young, that the door of opportunity has already closed. But those narratives collapse the moment you challenge them. When you silence the old dialogue in your mind, you give your future space to speak. New thoughts begin to rise, thoughts that strengthen instead of weaken, thoughts that lift instead of limit. You begin to recognize that fear is not a wall, it is a doorway, and doorways are meant to be walked through. Courage does not eliminate fear, it simply refuses to bow to it. To rise into your next level, you must become intentional about what occupies your mind. You cannot plant seeds of doubt and reap a harvest of confidence. You cannot water insecurity and expect strength to bloom. Your thoughts shape your posture shapes your decisions, and your decisions shape your life. The moment you take authority over what you allow to live in your head, you begin to reclaim the power you once gave away. You start replacing hesitation with conviction, confusion with clarity, and fear with forward motion. Transformation begins in the mind long before it shows up in your circumstances. You must also be willing to walk away from the environments that reinforce your limitations. Some rooms can't hold the weight of your growth. Some circles are too small for the size of your vision. The people who only know the older version of you may resist the new one you are becoming, not out of malice but out of familiarity. They've memorized your history but have no insight into your potential. If you continue to surround yourself with those who speak to your past, you'll never hear the language of your future. Protect your space, protect your energy, protect your mind from anything that undermines the transformation you are pursuing. As you reshape your thinking and elevate your environment, your actions begin to shift as well. You stop moving from emotion and start moving from purpose. You stop waiting for motivation and begin operating from discipline. You stop living from reaction and start living from intention. Little by little, the old version of you loses its grip, and the new version begins to rise with clarity and strength.